The variety of blessings. At that time, when the great congregation heard the Buddha teach that the length of his life was such a large number of eons, innumerable countless living beings received great, abundant benefits. Then the world-honored one said to Maitreya Bodhisattva, the Great One, Ajita, when I taught that the length of the Tathagata's life is very long, living beings as numerous as the sands of 680 billion myriads of Ganges accepted the teachings of the non-arising of all things. And 1,000 times more bodhisattva great ones attained mastery of the incantation that enables them to hear and to retain what they hear. And bodhisattva great ones as numerous as the specks of dust in an entire world delighted in being eloquent and unhindered in speech. And bodhisattva great ones as numerous as the specks of dust in an entire world attain the power of incantation which enables them to make hundreds of thousands of billions of repetitions. And bodhisattva great ones as numerous as the specks of dust in a 3,000 great thousandfold world turn the irreversible Dharma wheel. And bodhisattva great ones as numerous as the specks of dust in 2,000 middle-sized lands turn the pure Dharma wheel. And living beings as numerous as the specks of dust in 8 worlds all aspired to supreme awakening. When the Buddha had told about those bodhisattva great ones obtaining such great benefits of the Dharma, Mandarava and great Mandarava flowers rained down from the sky and were scattered over the innumerable hundreds of thousands of billions of Buddhas seated on lion seats under the jewel trees. They were also scattered over Shakyamuni Buddha and the long-extinct abundant treasures Tathagata on the lion seat in the stupa of the 7 precious materials. And they were scattered over all the great bodhisattvas and the 4 groups. Fine sandalwood and aloe powders and so forth also rained down, and in the sky heavenly drums resounded by themselves with a wonderful deep resonance. Censers of many jewels burned priceless incense, which moved all around of its own accord, making an offering to the great congregation. Bodhisattvas held canopies over each Buddha, one above another, right up to the heaven. All these bodhisattvas sang countless hymns with exquisite voices, praising the Buddhas. Then Maitreya Bodhisattva rose from his seat, bared his right shoulder, put his palms together facing the Buddha, and spoke in verse. The Buddha has taught a rare Dharma, never heard before. The powers of the world-honored one are great. His lifetime is beyond estimation. Countless children of the Buddha, hearing the world-honored one analyze and tell of the enrichment they will obtain from the Dharma, have been filled with joy. Some are at the stage of never backsliding. Some have mastered incantations. Some take delight in unhindered speech. Some have the ability to retain trillions of repetitions. Bodhisattvas as numerous as the specks of dust in 1,000 major worlds are all able to turn the irreversible Dharma wheel. When living beings hear about the long life of the Buddha, they gain countless flawless and pure fruits. Living beings, hearing the Buddha speak of his lifetime, have all aspired for the unexcelled. The world-honored one, by teaching the immeasurable, inconceivable Dharma, brings abundant benefits to many, as unlimited as space. Mandarava flowers from heaven and great Mandaravas rain down. Indras and Brahmas as numerous as the sands of the Ganges come from countless Buddha lands. Sandalwood and aloes rain down, jumbled together, Like birds coming down from the sky, they are scattered over the Buddhas as an offering. Heavenly drums in the sky resound by themselves with wonderful resonance. Tens of millions of billions of kinds of robes from heaven come whirling down. Wonderful censers of many jewels burn priceless incense, which moves all around of its own accord, as an offering to the world-honored ones. The multitude of great bodhisattvas hold canopies with the 7 precious materials, tall and wonderful, and in trillions of varieties, one above the other, up to heaven. Before each of the Buddhas, jeweled streamers hang and flutter, and tens of millions of billions of verses of praise are sung to the Tathagatas. Such things as these we have never known before. Hearing that the Buddha's lifetime is immeasurable, all beings are filled with joy. The Buddha's name is heard throughout the universe, bringing abundant benefit to the living everywhere. All their roots of goodness help them aspire for the unexcelled. Then the Buddha said to Maitreya Bodhisattva, the Great One, Ajita, those living beings who have heard that the lifetime of the Buddha is of such long duration and have been able to believe and understand it even for a moment will obtain blessings beyond limit or measure. Suppose there are good sons or good daughters who, for the sake of supreme awakening, over 80 trillion myriads of eons, follow the 5 transcendental practices: generosity, morality, patience, perseverance, and meditation, leaving out wisdom. Compared with those mentioned above, the blessings they attain will not even equal 100th, 1,000th, or 1 part of 100,000 billion. Indeed, such a comparison cannot be made either with numbers or with parables and similes. If any good sons or good daughters have such a blessing as this, they cannot fail to obtain supreme awakening. Then the world-honored one, wanting to say what he meant once again, spoke in verse. Suppose someone seeking Buddha wisdom were to follow the 5 transcendental practices for 80 trillion myriads of eons, and during those eons, as alms and offerings to Buddhas, Pratyeka Buddhas, and disciples, and the multitude of bodhisattvas, were to give rare and varied foods and drinks, fine clothing and bedding, or monasteries built of sandalwood and adorned with gardens and woods. If such people were to continue to give such a wonderful variety of alms through all those eons and transfer the merit to the Buddha way, and if they were to observe the precepts purely and without flaw or fault, and seek the unexcelled way that all Buddhas praise, and were they to patiently endure insult and live in a state of gentle harmony, not letting their mind be disturbed, even though various evils were to come upon them, and when people who think they have the Dharma and are filled with utmost arrogance make light of them and make them suffer, they would patiently bear even this. Or were they diligent and persevering, always strong in mind and will, for innumerable hundreds of millions of eons, single-mindedly, never neglectful, for innumerable eons, dwelling in secluded places, and, whether sitting or walking, avoiding sleepiness, and always concentrating, were they able by this means to produce states of meditation and to remain undisturbed, dwelling at peace for 800,000 millions of eons, and maintaining this blessing of single-mindedness, were to seek the unexcelled way, saying, quote, I will attain comprehensive wisdom and attain all the states of meditation. If such a person, for hundreds of thousands of billions of eons, were to do such meritorious practices as those described here, their reward would still be surpassed by any good man or woman who hears me teach about the length of my life and believes it for even a single moment. If anyone is entirely free from doubts and misgivings and deeply believes, even for a moment, their blessings will be like this. Such bodhisattvas who have followed the way for innumerable eons, hearing me teach about the length of my life, will be able to believe and accept it. Such people will gratefully accept this sutra and say, quote, "In the future, we too hope to have long lives for liberating the living." Just as the present world-honored one, king of the Shakyas, at the place of the way, with a lion's roar, teaches the Dharma without fear, so may we in ages come, honored and revered by all, when sitting on the place of the way, in like manner tell of the duration of our lives. If there are any who are profound in spirit, who are pure-hearted and do what is right, who, hearing much, retain it all, who understand the Buddha's words according to their meaning, such people will have no doubt. What's more, Ajita, if anyone hears of the long duration of the Buddha's life and understand its meaning, the blessing they obtain will be unlimited, awakening them to the unexcelled wisdom of the Tathagatas. How much more so if someone is devoted to hearing this sutra, or causes others to hear it, or embraces it themselves, or causes others to embrace it, or copies it themselves, or causes others to copy it, or with flowers, incense, garlands, banners, flags, silk canopies, and lamps of fragrant oil and clarified butter, makes offerings to the sutra. Such a person's blessings will be innumerable and unlimited, and will give rise to all-inclusive wisdom. Ajita, if any good sons or good daughters hear me teach about the long duration of my life, and believe and understand it deeply, they will see the Buddha always on Holy Eagle Peak, surrounded by a multitude of great bodhisattvas and shravakas preaching the Dharma. And they will see this world, with its land of lapis lazuli, smooth and level, its 8 roads marked off with jambunada gold, and lined with jeweled trees, its tall buildings all made of precious materials, in which multitudes of bodhisattvas live together. If anyone is able to see such things, you should know that this is a sign of their profound faith and understanding. After the extinction of the Tathagata, if people hear this sutra and do not speak ill of it, but rejoice in it, you should know that this is a sign of their already having deep faith and understanding. How much greater is that of those who read and recite, receive and embrace it? Ajita, such good sons or good daughters do not need to put up stupas, temples, and monasteries for me, or make the 4 types of offerings to the monks. Why? Because such good sons and daughters, by receiving and embracing, reading and reciting this sutra, have already put up stupas, built monasteries, and made offerings to the monks. That is, they have already put up stupas of the 7 precious materials for the Buddha's remains, tall stupas wide at the base, tapering up to the heaven, hung with flags and canopies and jeweled bells, with flowers, incense for burning, garlands, powdered incense, paste incense, various drums, musical instruments, pipes, flutes, harps, all kinds of dances and plays, and wonderful songs and praises. They have already made these offerings for innumerable tens of millions of billions of eons. Ajita, after my extinction, if anyone hears this sutra and is able to embrace it and copy it themselves, or lead others to copy it, then they have already built monasteries with 32 halls of red and sandalwood and as tall as 8 tala trees, lofty, spacious, and beautifully decorated, in which hundreds of thousands of monks live. They have gardens, groves, bathing pools, walking paths, and meditation cells, clothing, food and drink, bedding, medicine, and all kinds of things for comfort. Such monasteries and halls, hundreds of thousands of billions, countless numbers of them, have been given here in my presence as an offering to me and to the monks. Therefore, I say that after the extinction of the Tathagata, if anyone receives and embraces, reads and recites this sutra, teaches it for the sake of others, either copies it himself or causes others to copy it, and makes offerings to it, they no longer need to put up stupas and temples or build monasteries and make offerings to the monks. How much more true this is of those who are able to embrace this sutra and also practice generosity, morality, patience, perseverance, single-mindedness, and wisdom. Their virtue will be the greatest, immeasurable and unlimited, just as space, which in the east, west, south, and north, the four intermediate directions, and up and down, is immeasurable and unlimited. So, too, the blessings of such people will be immeasurable and unlimited, and they will quickly reach all-inclusive wisdom. If anyone reads and recites, receives and embraces this sutra, teaches it for the sake of others, copies it himself, or causes others to copy it, they have already put up stupas or built monasteries, served and praised the community of Shravakas, and also, in hundreds of thousands of billions of ways, praised the merits of the bodhisattvas. If, for the sake of others, with various causes and conditions, they explain this Dharma Flower Sutra in accord with its meaning, if they are already able to observe the precepts in purity and able to live with those who are gentle, patient, without anger, and firm in will and thought, if, always valuing sitting meditation, they have attained profound concentration, have patiently and zealously understood good teachings, and are clever and wise in responding to difficult questions, Ajita, if after my extinction there are good sons and good daughters who receive and embrace, read and recite this sutra, who have such excellent merits as those, you should know that they have already proceeded to the place of the way, sat under the tree of awakening, and are nearing supreme awakening. Ajita, wherever those good sons or good daughters sit, or stand, or walk, in that place a stupa should be erected, and all human and heavenly beings should make offerings to it, as though it were a stupa of the Buddha. Then the world-honored one, wanting to say what he meant once again, spoke in verse. If people after my extinction are able to honor and embrace this sutra, their blessings will be immeasurable, as explained above. It is as though they had made all kinds of offerings, and for the Buddha's remains had put up stupas, adorned with the precious seven materials, stupas tall and wide, tapering up to heaven, with banners and tens of millions of billions of jeweled bells, stirred by the wind to make wonderful music. For innumerable eons they make offerings to these stupas, with flowers, incense, and various kinds of garlands, with robes from heaven, and a variety of musical instruments, and by burning perfumed oil and clarified butter lamps, which constantly illuminate the whole area. In the evil age of the decline of the Dharma, one who can embrace this sutra will have done the equivalent of making all the offerings described above. If people can embrace this sutra, it will be as if in the presence of the Buddha they had built monasteries as offerings to him. Monasteries of 32 halls, 8 tala trees high, complete with superior food, fine robes, and bedding, with quarters for hundreds of thousands, with gardens, groves, and bathing pools, with walking paths and meditation cells, all variously and beautifully adorned. If anyone with faith and understanding receives, embraces, reads, recites, and copies this sutra, or even causes others to copy it, and makes offerings to the sutra, scattering flowers, incense and powdered incense, and constantly burning perfumed oil made from sumana, gardenia, or etamuktaka flowers, anyone who makes such offerings will obtain innumerable blessings. Just as space is unlimited, so too are that person's blessings. How much more so anyone who embraces this sutra and at the same time is generous, moral, and patient, who enjoys meditation, does not get angry or speak ill of others, is reverent toward stupas and mausoleums, and humble toward monks, who is never even close to getting arrogant, always pondering about wisdom, and does not get angry when asked difficult questions, explaining to questioners appropriately. If anyone is able to do all this, that person's blessings will be immeasurable.